Hi everyone, welcome back to the Stitches and Scribbles channel. My name is Erin, and today I'm doing another project where I'm going to let a D20 decide my crochet project. Today I will be making the daisy chain top by Realm Designs. It's a tank top made up of a bunch of flower motifs, and I thought it would be really cute for the incoming spring and summer seasons to wear over t-shirt dresses or kind of like as a lightweight sweater vest. And I have a ton of cotton scrap colors to use up for this project. Let's talk about the setup first. So I just purchased the pattern from Etsy. It is in UK terminology, so just be aware of that when you start crocheting. You're gonna have to look up the conversions, although I believe they're also at the beginning of the pattern as well. But just be aware of that if you're making it, that it does use UK crochet terminology. I then created a page for it in my project journal. So I made a note of the yarn that I'm using, which is just cotton worsted scrap. Most of it is the Lily Sugar and Cream brand. I'm using a 4mm hook as the pattern calls for. Gave the name of the pattern, my start date, and my notes. And I also created my key for what number I roll is going to match up with which color. So I have a ton of colors. I had 18 different colors in my scrap basket to use. So I just made numbers 19 and 20 choice rolls. I did realize I also need to write down what size I'm making. I'm going to be making the size 3XL, even though I usually make a 2XL, because I want this to fit a little bit oversized, so that I have the option of wearing it over bulkier clothing if I want to. And I also want to make it a little bit longer than the original pattern calls for, so I want it to be able to fit around my hips as well. So, continuing talking about setup, I have all of my yarn currently sitting rather precariously in this little basket. Hopefully the amounts will go down as I make more flowers. Some of my yarn colors have like a huge amount to them, and some of them are very, very small. In fact, there's one shade of blue somewhere in here that I think I'm only going to get one flower out of, if any. So that one will just have to go in a special spot. And I have my D20 out and ready to roll, as well as my dice tower that my brother 3D printed for me. It's got a cool little tree on it. You just drop the dice in and it rolls out the bottom. I'm going to record my rolls as I go, so I'm not going to sit here and roll every single dice roll on camera for you because this video would end up taking forever, but I am going to do some batches of rolls. So I'll do kind of the first row of the top all together for rolling. I think I realized for my size there's 22 flowers for the base of the garment, so I'll roll 22 times, write down my numbers, make all the flowers for that row, and then keep working up that way. That way I can also kind of re-roll for, or adjust my rolls as I go for colors that run out. So yeah, I think that's it for the setup. I'm going to get into rolling and taking my notes and then start crocheting the little flowers. It has been a couple days since I initially started. I actually did one flower initially. It was this one. Realized I did it wrong because I didn't follow the US terminology. I was reading it as it was written instead of translating in my head. So I have one extra flower that's just going to sit off to the side till this project is done. But I finished the first row of the base of the top, and I realize this looks really wide, but I think once I add the second row and it kind of pulls some of the petals in, it'll shrink just a little bit. But I think it looks really good so far. Couple of adjustments I made. First of all, I changed my hook size from a 4mm to a 5mm. And I did this because I realized the pattern calls for DK weight yarn and I'm working with worsted weight yarn. So the 4mm hook was not working. It was just way too tight to make all the flowers with, so I switched. The other thing I switched from my original plan is instead of making a size 3X, I'm making a size 2X. I can't remember which version I was making originally, but I went down a size from what I originally said I was going to do, which means fewer flowers made. Other changes. One, I did end up rolling this royal blue on the first roll. It's a really pretty color. I only had enough for one flower, and I realized I really, really liked it. So I ordered another skein of that color because I think this color is just too pretty not to include it more. The other thing I realized that I felt was kind of missing in my color palette was a red, so I ordered a cherry red as well. Now, those aren't going to get here till Sunday. I don't know if I said this earlier in the video. I originally wanted to make this to be able to wear it for some Easter gatherings. It is currently Holy Thursday, so that is not going to happen. And the other skeins of yarn won't arrive until Monday. So I'm going to keep going with this slowly and build up the layers. I do think I want mine longer than the original pattern, which only called for 3 rows of flowers before starting kind of the V-neck split. I think I'm going to do more like 4 or 5 rows of flowers. So I'll continue rolling, and for the colors that I'm currently missing, I'll just pick a color. So like royal blue was my number 16, so if I roll royal blue before I get the new skein, I'll just replace it with another color. And I had set number 19 as my red color, so same thing there. But otherwise, I think this is turning out very cute. I also think that you could repurpose this concept just to make a little garland or other garments, because you're truly just making each piece one at a time. I've also been really good about weaving in my ends as we go, so hold your applause until the end of the finished product. It has been probably 2 weeks since I filmed a clip for this video. It has turned into a crazy couple of weeks. Not a lot of time for crocheting. I had some really busy weeks at work. I had a relative who passed away and we had to do like planning for all of that stuff. I currently am getting over a cold. It's just been kind of a mess. So this video is going to end up coming out much later than I originally intended. But I did have a couple updates I wanted to share before I dive back into actually crocheting. Number one is that my extra yarn did arrive. I got the bright cherry red and the royal blue. I do think that my 2 blues are ever so slightly different, but I think it's not going to you're not going to notice once the piece is finished. And I have got about 1.5 rows of daisies made for the size I'm making, because I'm making the 2XL. Yes, that's what I'm making. I'm making the 2XL. I'm supposed to have 3 full rows of daisies for the bottom of the vest before splitting for the shoulder straps. I'm gonna work it as written for now, but since I have a very long torso, I will probably end up adding some extra rows of daisies. So we'll stick with 3 rows for now, but after that we may be adding more. So I'm gonna dive back in to crocheting my flowers. I'm not even 100% sure what direction I was going in, so I'll have to figure that out and keep going with the colors that I already rolled for. So let's dive back into crocheting. Okay, it has been forever since I've worked on this project. I'm looking at my project notebook where I was taking notes. I started this on March 25th, so I was probably filming this through end of March, beginning of April. It's now July 10th. I haven't picked this up in a while, but I'm ready to dive back into it now. So where I left off, I had done 2 full rows of flowers for my top. And I remember that I stopped because I had to redo a couple flowers because I realized I had the wrong number of petals on them, which would mess up later rows. So I went back and fixed them and then was really frustrated, so I stopped. I was also kind of over all of the like weaving in ends all the time, and it felt like very bulky to get the whole project out because it's not just, you know, one skein of yarn where you can work on your project. I have to have my notes out. I have to have the pattern out. I have to have 20 different balls of yarn that are out all at the same time. So it got kind of put on hiatus for a while, but I'm ready to dive back into this, even though the prime time for wearing it is now over for this year. I'm hoping that it can be ready for next year. So it is what it is. We're coming back to this project strong. So I'm looking at the pattern now and my notes from where I left off. So it looks like both the pattern directions and my notes, I left off with doing 3 full rows of the flowers that go all the way around before starting kind of the V-neck section and splitting for the front and the back. So I'm going to continue with that plan. And maybe I've said this before, I don't even remember what my original plan was. I do tend to like tops that are longer, but I think I'm going to make it as written and then add extra rows if I feel like I need it. That makes sense to me. I also clearly had already rolled all of my colors for the next row, so I'm just going to start with where I left off there. And here we go. Just popping in again. This is what it looks like after 3 rows have been completed, which looks really short, but I keep reminding myself that it kind of starts like at the base of the rib cage. I don't know why I showed it like that. It's not like you can see from there. And then works up for the split panels. So it should be still a cropped length because that was the intention, but not as cropped as it looks like it's going to be right now. And that means I'm ready to roll for the next section. So I have my dice tray back out, and I think what I'm going to do is kind of write out my numbers in my notebook to kind of match the shape of the front section so that I can cross them off as I go and just kind of build in a way that makes sense. And I think that's kind of it. After I do the front panel split, I'll do the straps because the back panels are just an extension of the straps, I think. I don't think that there's any shaping for the back of the sweater, but now I can't remember. There's a little bit of shaping. There's like small panels for the back, but the rest of it should go fairly quickly. Encountered a problem as I'm working on this, and that is that it is absolutely way too big, and I am trying to figure out how to troubleshoot that because at the end of the day I want a piece that I'm actually going to wear. So I think what I'm going to do before I get any farther, I had just gotten to the point of finishing the first row of the front panel, so that's where you see a 4th row. And I'm trying to look at the other sizes on the pattern, and even though I started with a size 2X, which is what I was working on, I think I'm going to try to size it down to mostly the directions for a large with some adjustments to it. So that does mean cutting flowers out of the body, and I'll probably take them from somewhere in this back section. That also means I might have to redo a couple in order to like stitch them back together, because these are join as you go, not sewn on. So that's what we're dealing with right now. Depending on how I end up cutting these, I may just reuse the yarn for making the flowers as flowers for parts of the top panel and the straps and kind of ignore what I rolled for, but we'll just have to see as we cut these apart and see what happens. So that's the plan for now. This is the finished top. I'm definitely glad that I sized down. I think when I originally started working on it, I wanted it to be able to fit over a button down as it's shown in the pattern. And so I was a little overly concerned with trying to make it oversized, but I don't think that that's actually the best fit for the garment. I think like just barely too big is the way to go, because obviously you're going to wear it over something else. But you don't want it to be too oversized. So I ended up sizing down to the medium size. I'm not sure if I already said that or not. Instead of the large, I basically took away flowers until it was the size I wanted around the band, and then checked the pattern to see how many flowers around the base equated to the size written in the pattern. So I kind of worked backwards to then create the size medium. I think that this turned out to be a really cute piece. I think it would be really cute over a t-shirt dress, but I also think it's cute over a t-shirt or something like that as well, or over a button down like it's shown. It also didn't end up quite as cropped as I thought it was going to be initially. I do think that's because the yarn I used is different. This is a 4-weight cotton yarn, and I believe the pattern called for a sport weight or a DK weight yarn instead of a worsted or a weight 4. So that's probably why I got a little bit of extra length. I have a very long torso, so usually anything that's marked as cropped is going to look ridiculously short on me, but I feel like this didn't end up having that issue. So I'm really happy with the finished piece. I think it turned out really sweet. I think this would be a really cute Easter outfit, which was originally my intent was to make this in time for Easter. Obviously that did not happen because it's now mid-July. But I also think it would be cute for the summer, for last day of school, first day of school if you're a teacher, because this definitely feels like a teacher outfit for sure. But I'm really happy with it. I'm glad I tried this pattern, and even though it was something I had to kind of put away for a while until I was in the right headspace to work on it, I'm glad that I came back to it and finished it, because I think it's definitely very cute. I also think that this could be a really cute part of a Ren Fair costume if you're doing like something kind of fairy inspired or with lots of flowery things in it. So a lot of versatility, at least for me. That's gonna be it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked what you saw today, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below so you can be notified of all my content right here on YouTube. I talk about books, I talk about crafts, and it's generally a good time here. And if you want to follow me on other social media sites, that information will be in the description box below. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye everyone.